Welcome, Morty Gang. This is our all-time, I'm
Oh, bro,
offense,
yeah,
all-pro first and second team for offense. We're gonna go with Zach's first because he has to record on his phone. I have to read his things. Do you want to say your quarterback? Because I don't want his name in my mouth.
no, you're gonna he's gonna be in your mouth, okay? I know it is,
No,
but he's gonna be in your mouth. Who is it?
read. I'm not saying his name.
That's all I see. I see
Oh,
me, and it's I still can't see. It's so many yards on the side. I still don't see it.
the fraud himself, Thomas Brady.
Yes, I'm Brady. 7 rings, most passing touchdowns, most passing yards, most comeback victories.
He,
He won.
he also played for like 40 freaking years.
No, he played until he was around over 40 freaking years.
Running back one, Jim Brown. He didn't play long enough.
Yes, he did. If Art Miguel would have just let him do his movies, he would have been playing over. And you would have had Emmett Smith rushing yard totals.
I disagree, but whatever. The first team for wide receivers is Jerry Rice and Calvin Johnson. Explain.
Jerry Rice, most receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, receptions, put up over 1,000 yards when he was in his 40s. Did it in 3 different decades, won multiple Super Bowls,
Calvin Johnson.
most receiving yards in a season. Megatron, one of the most gifted receivers that we've ever had.
If you have the most receiving in touch, I meant most receiving yards in a season, why don't you have the second guy, Cooper Kupp, on your list then?
So he did that in 17 games, and he has only really put together that one really good monster season. He has
He,
had decent production, but his only really super noteworthy year was 2021.
there. Uh, Tight end one, Tony Gonzalez. I agree.
Yeah, most receptions and receiving yards for the tight end. One of the guys to really uh, push for the tight end position. I was a senior and I was a youth son before him, but made going to the tight end a big thing. Also, shout out to Stanley Sharp as well.
Number one, no, for left tackle, Joe Thomas. I disagree. He's not even on either of my teams.
Like about like 9 consecutive Pro Bowls, 10,000 consecutive snaps. He did it all. He's the best left guard of their generation of all time. And to have done it and only wanted to play for the Browns, man, he didn't even want to play traded to play with Peyton Manning.
Hero.
Zero what?
Playoff games. You can't
Okay.
you can't deny that.
We're talking about a left tackle.
Number one for left guard, Larry Allen. He was a beast on the Cowboys in the 80s and 90s, I believe.
Yeah, man, he could. I believe that was back when we had the skills competition in the Pro Bowl. He just put up like 40 reps
Yes,
on
he
just
did.
the two of
They
the
sh
two plates on sides of
they
25.
sh they should go back to that. I want to see some offensive linemen just
It's hard to see
count.
like why it took to bench a whole bunch. Like they should just have like a lifting competition. But I am wow, so it's worth it. We don't, you know. People get injured and not get
True.
paid.
Center Gimato, I agree. He has the most Pro Bowls as a center and one of the only Hall of Fame centers. All pro,
Yeah,
men all pro.
a Raiders legend.
Yep. Number one right guard, Green Hendrickson. I did not have him on
He
my list.
was the for Jim Kelly and Marion Motley.
Let's see.
He was all those teams with those running backs, and they produced well. He was doing his job.
I agree.
It was unfortunate that it took him so long to put him in the Hall of Fame.
And number one right tackle, number one Forrest Gregg. I agree. Believe he has the most all pros as a right tackle as well.
Yeah, just the foundational piece, just kind of, when you talk about right tackle, she's just kind of who you want to near in terms of your legacy and your impact.
I see you're missing the greatest quarterback of all time on your list. He has the most MVPs, most of passing yards in a year, most passing touchdowns in a year,
Most
most
passing yards,
MVPs.
he had a pass to Wes Welker for 7 yards that he was so that should have been a run for Wes Welker. So it should
That's
be two.
it's not.
They
It's
should make Andres Galarraga have that perfect game. I think they should give Drew Brees his passing record back.
well, guess what? He doesn't. Your quarterback is Joe Montana. I agree that he's second, but I don't agree with your number one. You know who the number one actually is, and
Yeah, Cujo, just great Super
number
Bowl dominating team.
he also has no interceptions in the Super Bowls. He has 11 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. Joe Montana. Number two running back Barry Sanders. It's unfortunate he was with the Lions.
What? Kind of just like the same thing with Calvin Johnson
That's the only reason he retired.
on an all-time terrible organization.
Reed.
I believe they only won one playoff game with the Lions.
And he's the only
And
reason they won it.
yeah, Barry Sanders is back since Jim Brown.
I think he's the greatest running back of all time. That's my opinion. Number two, uh, the 3 and 4 wide receivers are Randy Johnson and Don Hudson. I agree with Randy Johnson. Explain Don Hudson.
He was just like the first guy to get over 1,000 yards. He broke his record for single season receiving yards 3 or 4 times. He broke his own record. He was the
Oh,
guy that revolutionized the wide receiver position and helped modernize the forward pass in the game.
we forgot the fullbacks.
I have 11 men.
What?
I have 11 men on there. That's a whole team.
Well, I got my fullbacks.
I'll put Mike Allstott.
I have Mike Allstott and Kyle Juszczyk. Number two wide receiver, tight end Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah, most receiving touchdowns for a tight end. Really kind of set the tone for what a tight end can be and what you can do when you kind of have the tight end be your main target, your main guy,
True.
because they had Tony Gonzalez was with the Falcons. They had Reggie White, and then they also had receivers when he was in Kansas City, and they also did have good backs. So he was kind of the first guy that you could kind of see a whole lot of offense run through at the tight end position.
And number two left tackle, Anthony Munoz.
Super dominant figure for the Cincinnati Bengals. Several All Pros, several Pro Bowls.
Wasn't he on those some Super
Really
Bowls?
protected blind side.
Didn't well, he wasn't the blind side because his quarterback was left-handed,
Well, yeah, but Boomer Esiason wasn't the only quarterback he had. I
but
believe he was with Ken Anderson.
which is left-handed, so he was not his blind side.
He was left-handed, not Ken Anderson.
Oh, I thought you said what's his name? Because
Wait, no, he did play with Boomer Esiason, but
the Bengals had two left-handed quarterbacks.
well, he protected the division.
And number two, oh, left guard, Bruce Matthews. He's a beast.
Yeah, he is.
Center, Chuck
He's
Bednar.
Matthews there was, but Clay Matthews Jr. is up there too.
Clay Matthews Jr. Yeah, he's a beast too. And number two, right guard, Marshall Yanda. I think he's the best right guard of all time. Explain why you have him at number two.
Because he never really had a really good running back. Like Ray Rice never, I believe, really put up over 5 yards a carry. It was around like 4.4, 4.2.
Well,
And then the running
remember
back,
those Ravens teams were passing teams with
they
Joe
were,
Flacco.
they just had multiple.
Oh, running back by committee type thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Number or two, right tackle, Mc, McCormack.
yeah. He was a right tackle when Jim Brown was on the Browns. And Paul Brown said he was the best offensive lineman he ever coached.
See,